Good evening, friends. My name is Elena, and I invite you to dive into a magical world that brings pleasant dreams and tranquility. Listening to a bedtime story will help you take your mind off the whirlwind of thoughts in your head, everyday tasks and plans, and fall asleep faster and wake up in a good, cheerful mood. Before we get started, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. This is important for the growth of the channel. And also, if possible, share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. This is important to me. Make yourself comfortable. Close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths in and out. And we begin.
In the heart of the primeval forest, where the giants of the plant kingdom stretched their limbs to the heavens, casting dancing shadows on earth. Among the greenery lay a hidden precious gem. It felt like time had stopped here. Centuries flew by unnoticed, leaving the remnants of history in the grooves and wrinkles on the trunks of the trees, witnessing countless seasons that have come and gone. This ancient sanctuary served as a habitat for a whole menagerie of creatures, of great and small beings. Each of them played their role in maintaining the hormone in this complex ecological tapestry. Sunlight filtered through the gaps between the colossal branches, drawing kaleidoscopic patterns on the mossy carpet beneath our feet. And the breeze whispered sweet notes to those who wanted to stop and listen. Among these natural wonders, an unusual structure rose up, seemingly grown right out of the ground it occupied. Its wooden frame bore witness to the passage of time, gray from the ceasing rains, and golden as the sun broke through the artistic shelf above. Pieces of ivy gently wrapped around the walls, wrapping the modest dwelling in emerald garlands, where drops of dew sparkled every morning. At the base of the house, wildflowers grew in vibrant colors. Their bright hues harmonized with the delicate symphony created by the rustling leaves and the chirping of birds. There was a calmness in the air, making everyone who cautiously approached the house feel as if they were stepping onto holy ground. In this mysterious little house lived the wise old weaver of dreams, a woman whose age was unknown. Her appearance showed a life of wisdom, and her locks framed her face with silvery white strands like clouds drifting across the azure sky. Her appearance reflected a life in pursuit of wisdom, and her locks framed her face with silvery white strands like clouds drifting, dressed in garments made of natural fabrics, and her locks framed her face with silvery white strands like clouds drifting. Dressed in garments made of natural fabrics, she embodied the symbiosis of humanity and nature. Her sharp gaze pierced through the veil of the surface, looking straight into the souls, yearning for connection and understanding. Patience and compassion radiated from her face, inviting even the shyest strangers to come closer and engage in conversation, or simply bask in her calming presence. An aura of hopelessness followed the healthy, wise weaver wherever she went. Be it an argument, herbs, potions, or a conversation with her feathered friends sitting on the spread branches. Those who were lucky enough to meet her considered her something akin to a living legend, a testament to the power of love, acceptance, and connection with the surrounding world. She was an amazing person who was entrusted with creating dreams filled with meaning and emotions for everyone who fell under her influence and those who encountered her. Throughout her incredibly eventful and fascinating days, the old wise weaver Snow was engaged in all sorts of activities, called upon to strengthen her connection with the inhabitants of the ancient forest. From dawn to dusk, she carefully tended to her garden. She carefully grew seedlings, turning them into strong plants, worthy of being her helpers in creating dreams. Birds, squirrels, and rabbits often visited her yard, attracted by the enticing aromas coming from her kitchen as she prepared healing potions. They played freely among themselves, attracted by the enticing aromas coming from her kitchen as she prepared healing potions. They played freely among themselves, occasionally stopping to exchange pleasantries with her esteemed hostess. Her melodious laughter often brightened the spring in the area. Listening to reminders that happiness in the little things cannot thrive even amidst the chaos and hustle ruling in the surrounding world. Amidst these everyday tasks, the old wise weaver of dreams was engaged in her main purpose, in creating words. To an outsider, her workshop might have seemed like just an unassuming alder getting used to her home. However, upon closer inspection, one couldn't help but notice a faint rainbow glow coming from the entrance, hinting at the unusual happenings inside. The centerpiece of this magical space was her treasure, a magnificent loom made from rare types of wood, holding centuries-old wisdom and assembled according to ancient texts that have long been lost to time. Adorned with intricate carvings depicting celestial bodies, mythical creatures, and abstract symbols, the loom serves simultaneously as a tool, a canvas, music. Unlike the ordinary tools used by mortal weavers, this exceptional and unique tool had several distinctive features in its design, specifically and carefully designed to meet the unique needs of the wise old weaver. Among these enhancements were the thread holders, capable of holding hundreds of different shades. This allowed her to convey the essence of individual emotions with supernatural accuracy. In addition, numerous petals provided smooth transitions between different levels of complexity, allowing her to create deep narratives filled with dynamic characters and a multitude of nuances. Watching the old wise weaver as she skillfully handled her loom with her deft hands, it's a sight that few will ever forget. Sitting in front of the device, she manipulated its components of vibration and slowness, guiding herself by intuitive impulses honed over decades of practice and experimentation, and by an innate sensitivity to the energies that permeated her surroundings. Guided by intuitive impulses honed over decades of practice and experimentation, and by an innate sensitivity to the energies that permeated her surroundings. Gradually, as the books merged and separated, intertwined and diverged, the patterns took shape, transforming into visual representations of the emerging dreams. At times, these visions took on recognizable forms, reminiscent of cherished memories, warm hopes, or lingering anxieties. In other cases, they transformed into completely new configurations, suggesting alternative realities existing beyond reach. Regardless of the final destination, each dream born in this sacred space received the same attention and care. It was treated as a treasure deserving of respect and reverence, rather than as a disposable commodity. This attitude stemmed not only from professional pride, but also from an unwavering faith that transforms potential, embedded in every verse, loop, and knot of her creations. The wise old weaver saw herself not just as a creator, but as a conduit, channeling divine inspiration into tangible form for the benefit of those who seek to expand their consciousness and explore uncharted territories of perception. Diligently applying her craft, she aimed to create dreams that resonated deeply with the recipients, prompting them to reflect, grow, and ultimately to discover themselves. And so one day, after wandering through the labyrinths of the ancient forest for what felt like an eternity, the weary traveler stumbled upon a sight that instantly lifted his spirits. A little whimsical house, snugly nestled among the riot of colorful flora, as if it had taken in Mother Nature herself. Fatigue. For a moment, he yielded to admiration, and the traveler paused to take in the charming sight that unfolded before him. His parched lips tried to form a grateful prayer, but all that came out was a hoarse mumble, testifying to how difficult his journey had been. Even though he felt completely exhausted, he gathered the courage to approach closer, driven by a desperate need for warmth and sustenance. As he approached, the door to the little house creaked open, revealing the source of the soothing melody that accompanied his approach. None other than the wise weaver of dreams herself stood before the traveler. Dressed in simple clothing adorned with intricate embroidery, she embodied a picture of serene elegance, pillared with genuine warmth and care. "Ah," she said softly. Her voice was like the gentlest breeze caressing the sun-warmed leaves. "It seems you've come a long way and are not feeling well. Come inside, dear traveler, and let me take care of you, kind traveler." Despite his initial doubts, born from a life spent traveling through treacherous landscapes in both a literal and metaphorical sense, the weary traveler no longer hesitated. He stepped over the threshold of the cabin, surrendering himself to the embrace of its welcoming interior. But he managed to do it. Like a door, the door closed behind him, pushing away the encroaching twilight. Once inside, the traveler found himself in a true cocoon of hospitality. In his trembling hands appeared a steaming cup of herbal tea with an earthy aroma, and a plate of fresh fruits and nuts provided the much-needed nourishment. As he ate and drank, the tension slowly faded from his muscles, replaced by a growing sense of lightness and well-being. The old wise weaver, in turn, watched her unexpected guest with interest, noting many signs indicating a soul burdened by grief, regret, and perhaps even a sense of guilt. However, beneath the surface, she discovered something else, a core of resilience and determination that refused to be completely crushed by the weight of accumulated hardships, the core of fortitude and determination, who did not wish to be completely crushed by the weight of accumulated hardships. Feeling the opportunity to offer comfort and support, The wise woman leaned forward and looked at the traveler. That seemed to pierce him to the very heart. "Tell me, friend," gently, she asked, "what brought you to this remote corner of the forest?" She asked, "What brought you to this remote corner of the forest?" The weary traveler, without hesitation, began to pour out his soul, sharing about his struggles, losses, and pain that drove him to seek refuge in the heart of the ancient forest. Tears flowed freely as he spoke, releasing emotions that had been held back for years, that threatened to overwhelm him completely. Throughout this emotional outpouring, the old wise weaver listened attentively, periodically uttering words of approval and understanding. When the traveler fell silent, tears dried, and he could no longer speak, periodically speaking words of approval and understanding. When the traveler fell silent, his tears dried up and his breathing slowed, and he could no longer speak. A palpable sense of relief hung in the air. "Thank you," he murmured quietly, bowing his head in gratitude. "Your kindness has given me a strength that I thought I had lost forever." "Strength?" the wise woman asked, raising her eyebrows in disbelief. "Or just a breather?" Buttoned up by the obvious discrepancy between their assessments, the weary traveler frowned slightly, carefully considering her words. Could it be that the balm applied to his wounded spirit represented nothing more than a brief reprieve from suffering? Or does it hold the potential for something greater, something transformative? Was it just a brief reprieve from suffering? Or does it hold the potential for something greater, something transformative? Wanting to understand this, the traveler decided to stay close to the old wise woman. Or does it hold the potential for something greater, something transformative? Wanting to understand this, the traveler decided to stay close to the old wise weaver, hoping that her unique talents and insight would help him return to wholeness, to the pumper of dreams. Hoping that her unique talents and insight would help him return to wholeness. He had no idea that this decision would spark a series of events that would forever change the trajectory of his life. Over the next few days, the old wise weaver and the weary traveler spent more and more time in each other's company. Their conversations grew deeper and broader, touching on a variety of topics. Origin of the universe, Ainu, human motivation, and the healing properties of certain herbs. At that time, the wise woman was closely observing her charge, noting his body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice, and she was recording these observations to use them in crafting a personalized dream that would meet his needs. His facial expressions and tone of voice, and recording these observations to use them in crafting a personalized dream that would meet his needs. Finally, after long reflections and preparations, the old wise weaver felt that her guest was ready to receive the fruits of her labor. Inviting him into a small room adjacent to her workshop, she gestured towards the low, narrow bed. The bed, with a frayed soft bedding strap, and covered with a gentle blanket made from patches of fabric gathered from distant lands. "Lie down and make yourself comfortable," she gently commanded, placing a pillow under his head. She ordered softly, placing a pillow under his head. "Close your eyes and let your mind relax, pushing away all the thoughts and worries that may weigh you down." The weary traveler obediently lay down on the bed and let his eyelids close. Almost immediately, he felt himself sinking into a state of deep tranquility, as if floating on a cloud of pink cotton candy. Meanwhile, the old wise weaver got to work. Approaching the loom, she selected several carrots, carefully choosing them based on their texture, thickness, and color. Working quickly and confidently, she passed these threads through guides and tightening devices, arranging them into a pattern that reflected her understanding of her inner state in her weaving. Then, using a technique passed down through generations by skilled artisans, she began to weave each pass of the shuttle. Then, using a technique passed down by artisans, she began to weave. Each pass of the shuttle created a new line of patterns, adding detail and rhythm to the fabric. The shuttle wove patterns, adding detail and rhythm. Threads took shape, dynamically responding to one another. Gradually, the threads took shape, dynamically responding to one another, entering into a dialogue and actions that conveyed powerful messages of love, forgiveness, courage, and resilience. Entering into a dialogue and actions that conveyed powerful messages of love, forgiveness, courage, and resilience. Soon, the individual dream was ready. Satisfied with the overall composition, the old wise weaver tied off the ends, trimmed the excess threads, and prepared to present the finished piece to her unsuspecting apprentice. At that time, the weary traveler continued his blissful journey along the flow of his dream, not paying attention to what was happening outside of his consciousness. And suddenly he felt a shift, a subtle shift from ordinary events to something completely different. As he looked at the vibrant, colorful landscape of his new dream unfolding before him, he gasped in amazement. There, drawn in the finest details, stood a majestic castle made of sparkling golden bricks and adorned with rubies, with sapphires and emeralds. Proudly waving in the fortress walls were flags bearing symbols of peace and prosperity, while around them bustled servants dressed in fine clothes, carrying out various tasks necessary to maintain the grandeur of the majestic residence. Curious, the traveler stepped closer. He stepped through the castle gates and entered the courtyard, teeming with greenery and exotic animals. Flowers spontaneously bloomed beneath his feet, exuding intoxicating aromas that stirred his senses and heightened his perception of the surreal surroundings. Overwhelmed by the beauty and wonder of it all, the traveler knelt down and tears streamed down his cheeks when he realized that this enchanting vision was not just a whimsical escape from harsh reality. Rather, it served as a mirror, reflecting the immense potential nestled within his own heart and mind. Stunned by this revelation, the traveler set off to further explore the castle grounds. Inspired by this discovery, the traveler went on to explore the castle grounds further, interacting with various elements of the fairy tale landscape, drawing valuable lessons of self-acceptance, compassion, and inner resilience. Along the way, he encountered friendly faces from the past, present, and future, each of whom urged him to embrace his true self and live according to his highest values. In the end, as it happens with all things, his dream began to fade, the lamp dissolving into a misty veil, separating fantasy from reality. Emerging from this altered state, the traveler found himself lying on a narrow bed, tightly clutching a patchwork blanket to his chest. Opening his eyes, he looked around the dimly lit room, and to his surprise, he saw that a wise old weaver was sitting next to him, watching him with a knowing smile. Reaching out, she comfortingly placed her hand on his shoulder and gently squeezed, giving her final advice. "Remember, dear traveler," she whispered softly, You are the one who creates and inhabits your dreams. Cherish them, learn from them, and above all, believe in their power to heal, inspire, and transform. And so, with forbidden clarity and purpose, the weary traveler bid farewell to the old wise weaver of dreams and entered a new chapter of his life, forever changed by the experience of receiving a magical dream created just for him. Although many adventures awaited him ahead, he knew for sure and believed that he had everything he needed to overcome any obstacles that might arise, relying on the loving support of a mysterious mentor who showed him the true meaning of creative self-expression, spiritual growth, and self-actualization. Leaning on the loving support of a mysterious mentor who showed him the true meaning of creative self-expression, spiritual growth, and self-actualization.